In 2019, a man walked into a casino in Las Vegas with $200 in his pocket. 3 hours later, he walked out with $11,000. He felt like he had beaten the system. He hadn't. He had simply been allowed to win because the casino already knew with mathematical certainty that men like him would come back. And when he came back, he would lose it all, plus a little more. This is the strange, uncomfortable truth about casinos. You can win. You can win big. The casino throws you a party, comps your drinks, maybe even shakes your hand. And it still makes money, almost every single time. Tonight, we're going to find out exactly how that's possible, and why an industry built entirely on chance never actually leaves anything to chance. Walk into any major casino, and the first thing you notice is that there are no clocks and no windows. That's not an accident, and it's definitely not because the architect forgot. It's the first move in a business model so carefully engineered that almost nothing inside those walls happens by coincidence. Casinos are one of the few businesses on Earth where the product is uncertainty itself, and yet the company selling that uncertainty is never uncertain about its own profits. Somewhere between the slot machines chiming and the dealers shuffling cards, there is a quiet, invisible force doing the real work. It's called the house edge, and it's the reason a casino can lose to you tonight and still end the year comfortably in the black. Here's the part most people never think about. A casino doesn't need to win every hand, every spin, or every roll of the dice. It only needs a small mathematical advantage, repeated across millions of bets, night after night, year after year. Take roulette. A European wheel has 37 numbers, but the payout only accounts for 36 of them. That one extra number, the green zero, is where the house edge quietly lives, uninvited but never leaving. It sounds small, just over 2.5%. But multiply that by the thousands of bets placed at a single table in one evening, and you start to see something extraordinary. The casino doesn't need luck. It needs volume. And volume, unlike luck, is something a casino can actually plan around. This is where most people misunderstand gambling entirely. They think casinos make money because most people lose. That's true, but it's not the real reason. The real reason is that casinos have removed randomness from their own side of the equation. Every game on that floor, from blackjack to slot machines to craps, is mathematically calibrated so the odds tilt even slightly in the house's favor. Poker is the one exception, since players compete against each other instead of the house. So casinos don't actually care who wins a poker hand. They just take a small cut of every pot, called the rake, and let the players fight it out among themselves. Now let's talk about slot machines, because this is where the psychology gets a little unsettling. Slot machines generate close to 70% of a typical casino's total revenue. Not blackjack, not roulette, not the poker room with all its dramatic sunglasses. Just rows of blinking machines that don't need a dealer, don't need a table, and definitely don't need you to have any strategy at all. They just need you to keep pressing a button. Modern machines run on something called a return-to-player percentage, usually somewhere between 85 and 98%, which means for every $100 fed into the machine, the casino is mathematically guaranteed to keep somewhere between $2 and $15 over time. It doesn't matter if you hit a jackpot on your third spin. Over 10,000 spins, spread across 10,000 different players, the math quietly does what math always does. Here's where it gets interesting, because winning on a slot machine isn't actually bad for the casino. It's essential. Game designers deliberately build in what's known as a near-miss effect, where the reels stop just one symbol short of a jackpot, far more often than random chance would suggest. Your brain doesn't register that as a loss. It registers it as almost winning, and almost winning triggers roughly the same dopamine response as an actual win, which is a fairly cruel trick to play on your own nervous system. You didn't lose that spin as far as your brain is concerned. You were close, so you play again. This isn't an accident of game design. It's the entire point of it. Let's step back for a second, because there's a bigger story happening here, one that goes far beyond the games themselves. Casinos don't just want you to gamble, they want you to stay. Every design choice in that building, the lighting, the layout, the absence of clocks, the free drinks, the maze-like paths between machines, exists to keep you inside as long as possible. There's a reason the bathrooms sit deep inside the casino floor, forcing you to walk past dozens of machines just to relieve yourself. There's a reason the carpets are loud and disorienting, patterns so busy they practically apologize for themselves. None of this is paranoia. It's documented architectural strategy, refined over decades by an industry that understands human behavior better than most psychologists do, and definitely better than your sense of direction. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating parts of this entire business. Casinos don't actually want your money in the traditional sense. They want your time, because time inside a casino has a funny way of converting into money eventually. That's why the drinks are free. Alcohol lowers inhibition and slows decision-making, which means players stick around longer and take bigger risks along the way. It's also why high rollers get comped hotel rooms, private jets, and five-star meals. And no, it isn't generosity. It's an investment. A casino might happily spend $50,000 flying in a wealthy gambler and putting him up in a penthouse suite, because statistically, his losses over the weekend will cover that bill several times over. This brings us to what the industry quietly calls whales, the small group of ultra-high-stakes gamblers who can lose or win millions in a single night. You'd think a whale winning big would be a disaster for a casino, and for one night, sometimes it is. There are documented cases of a single player walking away with $10 million or more in one sitting, which is presumably a very awkward moment for whoever runs the pit that night. But casinos don't panic, because they understand something most people don't. Individual outcomes are noise. Long-term averages are signal. A casino isn't trying to win tonight. It's trying to win this decade. And whales, statistically, almost always give it all back eventually, because the games they play still carry a house edge, and the house edge doesn't take nights off. Now let's talk about something a little darker, because you can't understand this industry without understanding its relationship with addiction. Casinos run what's essentially a data-driven loyalty system, tracking your play through rewards cards that log every bet, every session, every dollar spent. This isn't just for marketing. It lets casinos identify their most valuable customers, the ones who visit most often and spend the most consistently. And uncomfortably, the most valuable customers are often the ones showing early signs of problem gambling. Some casinos have systems that flag unusually long sessions or rapidly increasing bet sizes, not always to intervene, but sometimes simply to understand who their best customers are. A significant share of industry profits comes from a small percentage of players who gamble compulsively. It's a statistic the industry rarely advertises, but one that's been confirmed repeatedly by independent researchers. Let's bring in some real numbers, because this is where the scale of this business becomes hard to comprehend. The Las Vegas Strip alone generates roughly $8 billion a year in gaming revenue. Macau, often called the Monte Carlo of the East, generates even more than that, reportedly pulling in tens of billions annually, largely from VIP gambling rooms catering to China's wealthiest players. Globally, the casino industry is estimated to be worth somewhere north of $250 billion, and it keeps growing every year, even as online gambling reshapes how and where people play. This isn't a niche entertainment business anymore. It's one of the largest, most sophisticated consumer industries on the planet, built almost entirely on a foundation of carefully calculated probability. But building a casino isn't cheap, and this is where the business starts to resemble a high-stakes construction empire more than a gambling hall. A major Las Vegas-style resort can cost anywhere from $500 million to several $1 billion to build. The Wynn Las Vegas reportedly cost over $2.5 billion. The Cosmopolitan cost nearly $4 billion. These aren't just casinos anymore. They're entire cities under one roof, complete with hotels, restaurants, shopping malls, theaters, and convention centers, all quietly designed to funnel you back toward the gaming floor eventually. And here's something that surprises most people. In many modern casino resorts, the gambling floor itself isn't even the biggest source of revenue anymore. Hotel rooms, restaurants, nightclubs, and retail spaces have become massive profit centers in their own right. Some of Las Vegas's biggest resorts now pull less than half their total revenue from gambling. The casino floor still matters enormously, both financially and psychologically, because it's what draws people through the door in the first place. But the modern casino business has quietly become something closer to an entertainment and hospitality empire that happens to have a casino at its center, almost as an afterthought. Of course, none of this means casinos are invincible. This is a business with real risks and some genuinely spectacular failures. The Revel Casino in Atlantic City reportedly cost about $2.5 billion to build and shut down after only 2 years, unable to attract enough traffic to cover its enormous overhead. Atlantic City itself, once considered the East Coast's answer to Las Vegas, watched several casinos close their doors during the 2010s as competition from online gambling and neighboring states quietly drained away its customers. The lesson here matters. A casino's mathematical edge only works if people keep walking through the door. Location, reputation, and constant reinvestment matter just as much as the odds stacked in the house's favor. There's also the regulatory side of this business, which is far more complicated than most people realize. Casinos operate under intense scrutiny, required to report suspicious transactions, verify the source of large sums of money, and comply with strict anti-money laundering laws. Part of the reason is that casinos have historically been an attractive target for exactly that kind of abuse, moving illegally obtained money through legitimate-looking chip purchases and cash-outs. Modern casinos spend enormous amounts on compliance, security, and surveillance not just to protect their own edge, but to reassure the governments that allow them to operate in the first place. Those elaborate camera systems watching every table aren't only there to catch cheaters. They're there to prove, to regulators and to the casino itself, that everything happening on that floor is exactly what it appears to be. So where does all of this leave us? A casino, at its core, is a business that has turned uncertainty into a science. It doesn't need to be right every single time. It needs to be right often enough, across enough bets, over enough time, for the math to eventually win. Every free drink, every dazzling light, every near miss on a slot machine, every luxury suite handed to a high roller, exists to serve one purpose: keeping the game running long enough for probability to do what probability always does. You might walk out tonight with more money than you walked in with. Somebody always does. But step back far enough, look at the numbers over months and years instead of one single night, and you'll see the truth the casino has known all along. The house was never gambling at all. It was just waiting.